This is the very famous poem of William Wordsworth titled The Education of Nature. Oh, and another title of this poem is also 3 years she grew. Okay, it has been composed by William Wordsworth, who had been called as a romantic poet, and throughout this poem we can feel very well that William Wordsworth had been a lover of nature. Oh, what nature had been to him. William Wordsworth always regarded nature as a mother, as a teacher, as an educator, as a guide, as an instructor, even as a friend also. And here nature has been presented just like as a mother, as a foster mother, right? And her child, the name of her child that was adopted by her was Lucy. Lucy is an imaginary girl created by William Wordsworth, and here through nature and through Lucy character, William Wordsworth presented a beautiful relationship between teacher and the student, or between a mother and the child. So here nature has been personified, that is mother. So this is a very famous poem, The Education of Nature, and it is one of William Wordsworth's poems about an imaginary girl called Lucy. So this girl Lucy, she spent her short life in the lap of nature. So let us go through this poem. 3 years she grew. 3 years, okay, how many years she spent? She, that is Lucy, okay, she is here given this name to whom? To Lucy, and Lucy is an imaginary child, imagination of William Wordsworth. 3 years she spent, she grew in sun and shower. When we says that in sun and shower, that is that sun and shower is the symbol of different kinds of weather. Means sun and shower. Lucy, she grew up in sunshine, and she grew up even in rain. So here sun and shower symbolizes or symbolize the different kinds of weather where Lucy, that imaginary girl, she was brought up. For how many years? For 3 years, right? 3 years she grew in sun and shower. So the poet says that the girl Lucy, she grew up for 3 years in all kinds of weather. She lived in rain and she also lived in sunshine. Then nature said, a lovelier flower. And when the nature has been personified here, nature has been presented here just like a woman, just like a mother, and merciful mother, very kind hearted mother, she has been presented here. When nature as a mother, as a woman, she looks at Lucy, then what she says, a lovelier flower. Okay, these words are being used for Lucy, and that was the statement of nature. Now this statement is not of the poet, but it is said by nature. So don't forget this. Now nature says a lovelier flower, a lovelier flower. The girl Lucy, she has been compared here to a flower, and then nature said that she was so beautiful. Means Lucy was the most beautiful flower that had ever been planted on this earth. On earth was never sown. Okay, so on earth was never sown that Lucy, she was such a flower that nature had never seen such a flower on this earth. So a lovelier flower on earth was never sown. Here we find also a figure of speech, hyperbole. Hyperbole, a lovelier flower on earth was never sown. And this child, okay, child, who is this child? It is imaginary child, that is Lucy. This child I to myself will take. So now nature decides, looking at the beautiful girl named Lucy, nature decided to take that child into her own care, into her own protection. I to myself will take, she shall be mine, and I will make a lady of my own. She shall be mine. I will have a complete command over the child. I will protect her. I will care of her. I will just try to make my best to make her like me. And when the nature says that a lady of my own, what does it mean? That the child grow up to be a lady according to nature's own plan. Nature's according to her own plan, a lady of my own. So my rules, my regulation, or whatever I want, the child will be just like according to my plan. This child I to myself will take, she shall be mine, and I will make a lady of my own. So here the poet says that the girl Lucy, she grew up for 3 years in all kinds of weather, in rain, in sunshine, she had lived. And when nature saw Lucy, she said that the girl was just like a flower. She was the most beautiful flower that had ever grown, ever sown on this planet, on this earth. So nature decided to adopt her, or nature decided to be the foster mother of Lucy and to make the girl her own. So this was the very first stanza of this poem, and here we find nature may be an educator also. According to William Wordsworth, that nature is the best educator, and if we want, if we desire, we can get a lot of things, we can learn a lot of things from nature. Then the second one is, myself will to my darling be both law and impulse. Myself, okay, who's this myself? Nature herself. Nature, myself, that is I, myself, will to my darling be. My darling, that is Lucy, the girl, the imaginary girl, Lucy. My darling be both law and impulse. Law is actually a symbol for the forces that control human beings and guide their behavior. So law is just, we can say that it is a rule that indicates human beings what is right or what is wrong, and forces some kinds of rules and regulations over them. And impulse is the qualities, the virtues, or the innate desires, the inclinations a person is always born with. So both law and impulse. When nature says that both law and impulse, nature means here that Lucy, that she herself will give to Lucy. Okay, nature herself, myself will to my darling be. Nature, she herself will give to Lucy natural desires, taste, aptitudes. Then she will also control all those virtues so that Lucy may grow up to be a lady. So both things will be provided to Lucy, the control also and the freedom also. Means she will be controlled by nature, and she will also be given freedom by nature. And with me the girl in rock and plain. And with me, with me here is nature, and she will, the girl Lucy, she will in rock and plain. Now she will get all kinds of freedom, and Lucy either in rock, that is in mountains, on the and plain, on the plains, in earth and heaven, on the ground, or high in the sky. Okay, she will get a lot of freedom by nature, and she will be free to go anywhere in the nature, in glade and bower. In glade and bower, in glade, that is in open spaces, in the woods, in forest, and even in small plots of land thick with trees. Means she will be completely free to go even to those places which are always known as mysterious place, dark place, and Lucy will get a lot of freedom to go anywhere in the nature. Shall feel an overseeing power. Overseeing power means she will be supervised, she will be controlled, she will be guided by nature, right? So nature will always look after Lucy. She will supervise her, she will control her, she will guide her, she will motivate her, she will have an overseeing power over Lucy to kindle or restrain. Kindle, that is to enlighten her, to inspire her, to encourage her, and restrain, that is to prevent her, to control her. So she will be inspired by nature, she will be encouraged by nature, and she will also be controlled by nature. So all these lines we find here: antithesis in glade, bower, rock and plain, and earth and heaven, kindle or restrain. So here we find that the poet, he has used very well antithesis, using all these kinds of words. So nature is very happy to find this lovelier flower on the earth, and she has decided to look after, to adopt this imaginary child, Lucy. Nature wanted to teach Lucy, she wanted to train her, guide her, and she wanted to make Lucy just like a lady, okay, like a woman. So these lines indicate the importance of moral education and show very well the mysticism of William Wordsworth. They also echo the famous educational theory that there should be the least interference of restraining authorities in the development of a child. Means a child, as nature does that, a child must be given a complete freedom so that his or her personality may be developed very well. So this kind of philosophy we also find here, that it always helps in the development of a child personality. So in these lines, or in the very first and second stanza, right, in the very first and second stanza, we come to know what William Wordsworth indicated, what he has described here, that nature declares that she would be both law and impulse for Lucy, for the girl. Nature means that she would give to Lucy natural desires, natural wishes, taste, and inclinations. At the same time, nature would control and guide the development of these qualities in Lucy. Nature would remain with the girl, okay, in rock and plain, everywhere. She will always remain with the child, with this adopted child, and she, wherever Lucy will go, nature, she will always feel the presence of nature, the presence of her mother. So Lucy would be in her company on the plains and in the mountains, in open spaces, or in shady places in the woods. Wherever Lucy went, she would feel that some great power was looking over her and guiding her. Nature would inspire her natural desires, but it would also control them. If she found Lucy developing in the wrong way, overseeing power, she would kindle Lucy's natural tendencies also, but she would also stop her, okay, restrain. She would also stop her from using these tendencies in the wrong way. So nature has been presented here as a moral educator, as a teacher by William Wordsworth.